Hey guys, it's Ashley with the Camping Costas. I just wanted to talk to you guys a minute about painting. We've had a lot of questions lately about painting in our process, especially now that we've got kind of our social media pages running and our YouTube videos. So I wanted to do a quick Fix It Monday about painting. So the following footage was taken over about a month and a half. It took me about that long to paint everything, to get all the doors done, and it just was a process because kids were home or then they went to summer camp, and so I had a few hours every week that I could work on it. A couple things I want to say before we dive into the video. So the products we used are Zinsser Cover Stain. That's an oil-based primer. I primed everything with that, walls, ceilings, cabinets, everything. I probably could have used a latex primer on the walls and the ceilings, but because I was buying one for the cabinets anyway, I didn't want to buy a second. So I just used it for everything. So the reason I went with an oil-based primer over a latex primer is I wanted the paint to have some strength and durability, especially because we painted right over the wall covering. I just wasn't sure how a latex-based paint might hold up. Or a latex primer. The other thing about oil-based primer is it really does help with strength and durability of your paint, and you can always paint a latex over an oil-based. You can't go reverse though. You can't prime with a latex primer and then paint oil-based. It just won't work. So that's what we primed with. Now, Zinsser on the directions say to clean everything with a TSP alternative. Now, did I read the directions prior to cleaning? No, I didn't. So I cleaned with TSP and then primed, and so far so good. We haven't had any problems. But it does say to use an alternative, so if you're going to go to the store and buy something anyway, maybe look for an alternative. Now for the walls and the ceilings, we painted with Benjamin Moore Regal Select in Chantilly Lace is the color, and we did an eggshell finish. The reason for an eggshell finish is just to help it be a little bit easier to clean. And that's why I did that over a flat. We also used Chantilly Lace on all the cabinets. I just went with a semi-gloss. And then the blue below is Palladium Blue. Again, for the cabinets, we went with Benjamin Moore Advanced Waterborne Alkylid. It's an enamel paint. It goes on really nicely. It is pretty viscous, which means it's pretty thin, kind of drippy. So you do want to be careful, and it does take a little bit to get used to that over like a latex paint that's thicker. With the interior alkylid, the reason we went with that is because it's formulated for doors, trim, cabinets, high use areas. It cures fully in 5 days, whereas a latex paint takes 3 to 4 weeks, and it's really hard. You know, we've been in here now, taken a couple of trips, and things are going really well. It's holding up really well. We're not getting a lot of nicks and bumps, so everything's good. I will tell you that I did prime and paint my cabinets in my home with latex paint, and that looked great for about 6 months, and then it just started chipping off really badly, and now it doesn't look good. So I don't recommend going with latex paint. In our experience, it just hasn't worked well. And I don't know if that's because it wasn't allowed to cure long enough, or what happened, but it's not held up well. Another question we get a lot about is what about alternatives like chalk paint, or I know there's one called Heirloom Traditions. I don't have much experience with either of those. I've chalk painted furniture, but I usually do a polyurethane on top for durability. So for this, I just decided I wanted to try this alkylid. And as I said, it looks great. I mean, it's beautiful, it's shiny, you can't see brush strokes, so it looks really great, and I highly recommend the Advanced Waterborne Alkylid. Also with Benjamin Moore, I just like their paints, I like their colors, I think they're more pigmented, I just really like their paints, but ultimately, you know what you like best, so you use what you like best. This is just one technique and method. For application, for the oil-based primer, I just went with pretty much a cheap roller and a cheap brush. I wasn't going to clean it because I didn't want to deal with mineral spirits, so I just threw it away. So I just went something cheap and put it on there. For the Regal Select, I went with probably a Best roller, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the nap that we used. I know they come in like good, better, best. So we probably used a pretty high quality roller, and I just can't remember the nap. For cabinets, however, we went with a 3/8 or 1/4 inch microfiber. That's what's recommended by Benjamin Moore, and that's what I went with, and it worked out great. I used a high quality nylon polyester brush for in like any little fine detail areas that we needed. That worked really well too. They sell one, and I just can't remember the brand, that has a short handle and it's made out of like a malleable plastic or a rubber, so it's really easy to use. It's comfortable in your hand. So that's my brush of choice, and I'm sorry, I just can't remember who makes it. What else? Let's see. Oh, cost. Cost is another big question we got. So the Zinsser cover stain, I believe, is $20 a gallon. I think we went through a gallon plus a quart. The Regal Select, I can't remember how much it is. I'm sorry. I think it's around $25 a gallon. I think we did maybe 1.5 gallons for the whole interior. And then for the Advanced Waterborne Alkyd, it is a little pricey. It's $26, $27 a quart. We went through, I think, 4 quarts of white and maybe 1 of blue, maybe 2. I might have had to buy a second quart of blue. So 4 to 5 quarts of white and then 1 of blue. The other reason I think we went through a lot of paint is after you prime, you do want to sand with a medium grit sandpaper. 120 is what's recommended. So I did that, and then I wasn't paying attention, and I just said, well, I'll just sand with 120 in between every coat. I probably should have moved up to 220. I ended up going up to 220 before my 3rd coat because it did take me 3 coats on the white. And the 220 was much better. So I should have just done 220 after that initial 120 between primer and first coat of paint, but I didn't. The other thing is we were covering really dark cabinets, so it did take a lot of paint from a dark to a white. The blue only took 2 coats and it came out great. So I think if you're sanding 220, you don't go too hard, you should be fine. If you have any questions about painting, especially with the Advanced Waterborne Alkyd, Benjamin Moore has a great tutorial on their website and on YouTube. It'll walk you through each step so you don't have any questions, and that's just kind of what I used as a guide and following along. So I'm going to take you through kind of the process. I didn't film everything because how many times can you watch me paint in time lapse? Not that many. I get bored of myself, so I'm sure you do. So we're going to go through that, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to talk about one other issue that we ran into in painting. I'm about to start painting. I'm going to do the ceiling and the walls first, so that if I throw any paint, it just gets thrown on the primer and not on like nice painted cabinets. So I'm going to do that first, let everything dry. I won't give up on you. I will be holding on for life. Hope you believe in us. Please don't give up on me. At least give me a try. 'Cause you're the best thing, the best thing. You're the best thing that I've ever had. You're the best thing, the best thing. You're the best thing. 'Cause you're the as I'm walking to your place, I'm shaking. I am picturing the words in my mind. I cannot stand losing you. No, I will fight. 'Cause I believe in us. I won't give up on you. I will be holding on for life. Hope you believe in us. Please don't give up on me. At least give me a try. So I'm back in the camper today. Gonna finish up the kitchen cabinets. Again, I haven't started the doors, and I also have to paint the dinette, but I'm gonna get at least the boxes complete, so that's done. Okay, so I wanted to show you really quick what they look like. I've done 2 coats, and unfortunately, I think I'm gonna have to do a 3rd coat on the white, but the blue looks really good. So here's the the white, and it's just not covering as well. You can still see a lot of brush strokes. So my plan now is with this is to go back over it instead of with 120, but with 220, which is a finer grit. Just knock it up a little bit and then put a third coat on. I think I just went too hard with the 120 and just knocked off too much of the paint and primer that was underneath. So I'm going to try the 220 and see if that looks better, because the blue looks good. I think the blue is done. You don't really see any brush strokes, and I think that's just because it's a darker color. You know, it just has a little bit better coverage than white when you're trying to cover a dark wood underneath. So I'm going to leave that alone. I'm happy with it. Okay guys, so I have finished coat 3.5. And I'm going to say half because I had to go back and touch up a couple places. So I'm going to show you the cabinets really quick. So you can see now there's really no shadow left. It looks really even. And I'm really happy with the way it is now, the white. It did take me basically like 3.5 coats, but I think we're good enough at this point. I'm going to say it's good enough. Sometimes good enough is frankly just good enough. So today we're going to do the doors, all the cabinet doors. So I have them all laid out, and I'm going to follow the same process that I did with the boxes, in that I'm going to sand, I'm going to remove all the hardware, sand everything with 120, then clean up, and then prime with Zinsser Cover Stain, which is oil-based. And then once that dries, sand it again, which will probably be tomorrow, and then start applying the first coats of paint.
As I'm walking to your place, I'm shaking. I am picturing the words in my mind. I cannot stand losing you. No, I will fight. 'Cause I believe in us. I won't give up on you. I will be holding on for life. Hope you believe in us. Please don't give up on me. At least give me a try.
So the last issue that we're going to talk about before we wrap up is what happens if you have a wood veneer on top of your cabinets and that has started to peel. That happened to us. I've seen it happen to a couple other people. So what I did is I peeled off as much as I could, just hand peeled. Then I sanded it down and then went over it with a layer of spackle, allowed that to dry, sanded it, and painted it. That worked really well. I'm glad that I did it that way. I didn't do it that way in one area, and you can really tell, and it doesn't look good. So I do recommend just going over it with spackle, letting it dry again, then sanding, priming, painting, just as you would doors. And that works really well. As you can see, some of the veneer has started peeling off here. So what I've done is I just peeled back what I could, just hand peeled, and then I went over it in 80 grit sandpaper and just roughed all these edges up so it's smooth and nothing else is peeling. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to float some spackle over it. Okay, so I have my putty knife and I'm using DAP Fast and Final lightweight spackling, and I'm just going to kind of load up my scraper here with a pretty good amount. I'm literally just going to kind of smooth this on, make sure it gets nice and even. Probably, I'm going to take a lot of this off, but right now I'm just trying to get a nice good coat on it. A nice good even coat, then once it dries I can prime and paint right over it. Now I do sell, I think, some veneer tape or some product at like a home improvement store. I've never used it, I didn't have any, and I don't want to stop what I'm doing to go look for it. So as I said, I tried this in the bathroom and it works pretty well. So I'm just going to do it this way. Sometimes you take off too much, come back and just put some more on. And just kind of work with it until you get it how how you like it. And that's kind of like what it is. And that's just excess. That's all you're doing. And then you're gonna come back and you're gonna sand this anyway. So if you have a little bit that's not exactly perfect, but just kind of do it the best you can. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Drop a comment if you have any questions or comments or something maybe you've done differently that you've worked out what has worked out well for you. We'd love to hear it. If we did anything wrong that you say, oh no, you shouldn't have done it that way, that's going to give you problems down the road, let us know, because we're always learning. We're always doing this. Our method is by no means the best method. So we'd love to hear what else you guys think. So I'm going to leave you guys with a couple of interior photos, including our bedroom, which we have not previewed yet on our Instagram. I need to hang drapes and I haven't done that yet. So that's why it hasn't been up yet. But we're hopefully going to do that this week because we have Disney next week and I want to have everything done by Disney because my dad is flying in from Mississippi to hang out with us and spend time with us and his grandchildren who he's not seen in a year because of COVID. So I want this place to be looking good when my dad comes. I can't do anything about this door that I got primer on that I still don't know what I'm going to do with yet. So that's just going to stay the way it is. But I want to have everything else done. So thanks again, guys. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.
The best thing.